We can't claim to be doing something about the future unless we understand where the future is heading, right? Future foresight should be institutionalized. And the beauty with our leaders is that they plant the seed of a vision and they see the North Star, and then they give you all the trust to figure it out.
Hello and welcome to NextGen, your exclusive look into the future through UAE's industry leaders. And today's guest is His Excellency Khalfan Belhoul, the CEO of Dubai Future Foundation. Thanks so much for joining us today, Excellency.
Pleasure. Good to see you always.
So we're going to talk a lot about the future and, of course, Dubai's role in making sure that it's always ahead. But before we talk about the future, I would really like to talk about the past, and specifically your past. If you can share what it was like for you growing up in Dubai.
Again, first of all, good to be with you on this show today. And talking about the past, I mean, obviously I've blessed to go through a journey of education, which was, I'm not that old to say that I lived in a tent in the desert or I was on camels. I'm almost as old as the country, maybe a few years younger. I'm 46 right now. The country is 53, so I'm post the founding years of this nation. But I'm blessed to have had an amazing, raised by amazing parents, first of all. Secondly, going through an amazing education journey in school, whether it was to start with in Al-Ittihad, Madrasat Al-Ittihad or Al-Ittihad private school, then studying in Rashid School, which I think was also the secret sauce of giving me this. I was blessed with the ability to learn from a diverse set of students, and I think this diversity in Rashid School, when we were kids, we had expats and we had royalties and we had people from all over the world, and I think having this ability to connect with different minds, with different cultures, at such a young age, it triggered this ability to really communicate with different people. And I think it was followed through by me also going to Boston to study, which you know very well. Boston is one of the melting pots of the world. So it also definitely had helped me beyond the degree in Boston. I really think as much as education is very important, I think.
And you spent 7 years there.
I did, yes. I mean, yeah, but you make it sound very long, but it's undergrad and grad, so it was.
You completed several degrees during that time.
Yeah, a double major in finance and MIS, and then a master's in e-commerce, and obviously enjoying a city like Boston. But going back to like I said, I mean, my journey was filled with interactions with different cultures, whether it was throughout my childhood in school, and then going to Boston, but then coming back to a melting pot of a city, which is Dubai, which has more than 200 nationalities in it. So as much as I give credit to my parents, the way they raised me, and I mean the education that I've gotten throughout my journey, but I also give a lot of credit to this experience in life that I had, and how blessed I am to actually have that very diverse culture around you, which helped me a lot in interacting with people from all over the world.
For you growing up, if someone asked you what was your dream as a kid?
To be a footballer. Has nothing to do with, I've always dreamt to be a football player. My dream, every time I sleep when I was a kid, before I sleep, I think about lifting the World Cup or lifting a trophy, more on the athletic side of things. But you never know. But I think I give sports a lot of credit into my journey as well. I think sports is beyond sports. I think sports connects you with leadership skills, with communication skills, with lifting people when they're down, with understanding what it means to work as a team. And mentally, it puts you in the right position to deliver. So I think that kind of being part of my life by participating in sports a lot helped me a lot in my career. I never expected to be in an entity related to the future. But the beauty about this entity is that it's so agnostic. It looks at so many sectors, so many opportunities, which literally cannot make you an expert in anything. It just makes you an enabler for everything.
So for you, growing up, wanting to become an athlete, a footballer, to be precise, then going into private equity, what takes someone who has their eyes, I guess, set on the private sector into government?
So I was more running the family office, investing in private equity. I mean, private equity per se was a fund, was probably my brother's area of expertise, which I've learned so much from my brother Faisal. He ran a private equity fund, and I was an investor in that fund through the family office. So my role was actually to oversee the family investments, which included private equity. So obviously, I mean, it was a diverse portfolio that that the family has set up from my father, basically. And like I said, I mean, understanding this process, understanding investment, and just out of the blue, I had a conversation. I remember back in the days it was, I think, 2013 or 14. I had a conversation with His Excellency Ahmed bin Biat, who was the CEO of Dubai Holding back then. And that conversation led to me joining Dubai Holding because they had an asset allocation plan, a growth mode plan. Obviously, I mean, I've been through that asset allocation experience through the family office, but clearly at a much larger scale on Dubai Holding was my role at that time. Ahmed then led to a conversation with His Excellency Mohammed Al-Gargawi, who both took me under their wings back then. And I was heavily involved in Dubai Holding, which gradually took me to this position at Dubai Future Foundation, where we are chaired by His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, which is an absolute honor because he is a futurist by DNA, and he looks at the future, and it's amazing to be working in an entity overseen by him.
And also an athlete.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a role model when it comes to many things. Clearly, with his, I mean, involvement in sport as well, and I think strikes the perfect balance between pushing Dubai 10 years ahead, but at the same time pushing the whole city to become the healthiest city in the world.
Which I guess brings me to my next question of defining the future. So when DFF was established, 2017, and the whole idea was to prepare and get Dubai ready to combat anything or to continue to secure its position as a global leader in the future. What is the future? Are you looking 20 years, 50 years, 100 years from now?
So when you talk about the formation, I can't hold myself, but remember how this foundation was formed, and it really shows you how visionary His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid is. Not many people know this story, but the Dubai Future Foundation had started in the World Government Summit, which is the annual convening that happens in Dubai. You know it, and prime ministers, ministers, executives from all over the world come into the World Government Summit for this 2-day or 3-day convening that happens in Dubai and the UAE. And within that summit, there was a small setup, an immersive setup that was called the Museum of the Future back then. It was probably an experience 3 or 4 times the size of this room that we're sitting in here. And the idea was, it was a small team from the Prime Minister's office, and they've done that small experience for delegations to really have serious conversations about the challenges of the future. So it was an immersive experience that talked about the future of food, the interaction of robotics with humanity and AI. And it only took His Highness one visit to walk through with delegation. He came in from the door, exited from the other side of that experience, and the message was, this conversation should not be confined. It's so serious that it shouldn't be confined to a set of group of people, important people, yes, but we need to spread it to the world.
And not just during the summit.
And not just during the summit. And his message was, and this is the key word, he said, future foresight should be institutionalized. So we need to create an institution that really creates foresight and does something about it. So now, just sitting here now, fast forward, looking at, I mean, the institution that we have, because when we first started, we literally, I'll be very frank, we had no clue where to start. This is something new. It's very hard to benchmark against. How does a future foundation work?
How do you measure the success?
How do you measure the success? What projects do we go into? There was a lot of trial and error. And clearly, I mean, speaking to what we've mentioned earlier, we've been given the leeway and trust to actually test and try new ideas. So we've launched many programs, the Dubai Future Accelerator, Dubai 10X, and Dubai Future Academy, all in an attempt to understand how would we actually set up a foundation. And his message, His Highness's message was one: we need to institutionalize future foresight for the betterment of humanity. And the beauty with our leaders is that they plant the seed of a vision, and they see the North Star, and then they give you all the trust to figure it out. And like I said, I mean, it wasn't easy because we couldn't really benchmark around the world. This was something new. But I think if we come to the day, first of all, I can say that small immersive experience that we talked about in the summit became, thankfully, one of the most beautiful buildings in the world in the Museum of the Future. We've just passed our more than 2 million visitors visited the Museum of the Future. It's been selling out on a daily basis, a month in advance almost. And we have kind of replicated that small experience, gave it a bit of steroids, and created the Museum of the Future in a way to show people how we can imagine the future. But not only that, the bigger impact is an institution has been set up. By really understanding the future, we have a proper team that really understands where the future is heading, leveraging on internal and global expertise and networks, coming up with a view on the future, releasing mega trends and opportunity reports, because we can't claim to be doing something about the future unless we understand where the future is heading, right?
And evolving.
Exactly, exactly.
So if you were asked specifically, what are the objectives today of the Dubai Future Foundation?
So I would say our main vision is to put Dubai 10 years ahead. That's one. And second is to continue promoting Dubai and the UAE as a leading city and a country of the future, but all for not only the betterment of Dubai and the UAE, but for the betterment of humanity as a whole. A small country by size, but we are large in ambition when it comes to ambition, and we want to create massive impact.
How do you see the Dubai Future Foundation contributing to Dubai's future economy? On one hand, you're talking about it as a lab for entrepreneurs and innovators to try things and make mistakes, but if we're looking at something more tangible.
Okay. So clearly, I mean, if you look at the evolvence of the industrial revolutions and the economies, you'll realize that there's a lot of dependency going forward on talent. I mean, the fuel of the future will be talent. We've moved from one industry to another through the 4 industrial revolutions, and now we're actually moving into the 5th one. You'll realize that everything evolves around talent enablement.
So you say talent and you think of humans, whereas people will assume future equals robots.
Well, it's both, but I think everything is driven by the human capital, because human capital will be coming up with those great ideas. The biggest bottleneck for talent is if the government does not act as a platform to enable those amazing ideas. You can have the most talented individuals, but if you don't have the right regulations that can open up those doors for them, the right policies that can be amended. I'll give you many examples. If someone comes up with a drone solution for last mile delivery, and you do not have the right ecosystem for them to actually use those drones, I mean, what use will that innovation be? We always use the example of blockchain and how people talk about blockchain, but if you do not enable them to test blockchain and use it in a safe manner to start with, and then opening it up for the public, which is a key component where you can actually create sandboxes to test those ideas. But the name of the game here is speed and agility. Understanding what they want, move with it quickly and safely, get everyone involved in the room in an agile way. And I'm talking about the stakeholders, the decision makers, any investors, any entrepreneurs, all in the same room, having the conversation and moving fast. This is what creates that speed and agility. No matter how much we change regulation in favor of innovation, the next day something new comes up. So it's about how you can create shrink that gap between the regulations that you have and the speed of innovation and how it's changing.
If we look at Dubai's growth over the past 20 years, it's been astronomical. And if we look at the next 20 years, I'm curious to know if you think there's still the same growth trajectory. Will the pace still be the one that we're used to?
I think this will be, if you look at the D33 targets at Dubai, you'll realize that the ambitions are still high. The targets to double the GDP, the targets to attract more talent. So I think the ambition to strive to be number one in everything is always amazing. Like I said earlier, it doesn't mean that we'll be number one in everything, but we need to push to be that. But like I said, I mean, new ideas will come in, opportunities and new sectors will open up, and this will continue to happen. And not only that, this will even become much faster now with the advancement of technologies. My view is that change will be much bigger, impact will be much bigger. So I think the growth and the introduction of new sectors will happen at a much faster pace. So we need to be fast and ambitious.
How does DFF identify the areas that you need to invest in for the future?
So that's a great question. The simple answer is we have more and more conversations through our platforms with specialists in-house and all over the world. How do we do this? Like I said, I mean, we cannot claim to be a future foresight entity without investing a lot in understanding where the future is heading. And we do this through many ways. One, we have an internal, futurists, experts department that come in day out trying to understand the trends and the mega trends of the future. But they don't do this alone. They do this in connection with other future societies, but even more importantly, they leverage on platforms like the Dubai Future Forum, which happens on an annual basis. We gather more than 3,000 delegates from all over the world. More than 400 futurists come from all over the world. Expert futurists talk about their view on the future, agnostically through the most unique and crazy ideas around the world, whether it's the future of food to the interaction with robots, genome sequencing, living in space, all those ideas that we think are crazy and science fiction, but we know they're coming closer to us. And those conversations are always synthesized and with interactions with experts. And based on those megatrends and opportunities that we have, we then cherry pick the right opportunities that we believe can create the largest impact. So some of them can be in investment mode, some can be strategies and programs, some can be educational through the Dubai Future Academy, some can be policy change in favor of new ideas. But to answer your question, it's all about having those conversations with experts through the program and through the digital world as well, through different platforms that we have online. And based on that, then we try to make an expert decision on the future.
You mentioned Museum of the Future, which has become an instant beautiful landmark. I would like to know how you envisioned it before it opened, and then now, what kind of role do you see it having in the community?
Yeah, so there's so many stories about this. The first story that comes to my mind is how, obviously, leadership came up with this idea. Conventional museums, and I always have jokes when we speak about conventional museums, which are amazing, whether we're talking about the Louvre in Abu Dhabi or many other museums, fantastic museums. But I always say, jokingly with the different museum owners, that the experiences in those museums appreciate in value with time. So they don't have as big as a challenge as we do. So whatever is worth X today in a conventional museum appreciates in time because it gets older, right? So it becomes more valuable. People appreciate it. In a futuristic museum, whatever is futuristic today can become obsolete in 2 or 3 weeks or months. So we need to constantly become future relevant. So for leadership to think of a museum that's for the future is very ambitious. So this is just, but it really set the pathway for us to institutionalize future foresight. The second is I just remember the building being built and just looking at it from the window of my office, facade piece by facade piece being installed. If you look at the building and the shiny metal walls of the building, there's 1,024 of them. And I recall looking at the window every single day when the crane would lift one piece and attach it, and just ticking off the building piece by piece, and then celebrating with leadership the attachment of piece number 1,024 and having us all sign on it, and then being blessed with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum having the signature on that last piece was an absolute honor for us. So this was an amazing moment. But then just, looking at the numbers of it became like a box ticker here in Dubai. People would have to come to the Museum of the Future. They'd want to come and see it. And like I said, more than 4,000 people on a daily basis. We crossed the 2 million mark. But like I said, it triggers this curiosity in people that come in and how a future would look like. And it creates a connection between our foresight and where we see the future is heading. People get a glimpse of it within the floors of the museum, and we get an understanding, and we get the curiosity of the kids. I love it when I see the kids going into that space station and really feeling that they are in a space shuttle and really having that excitement in them and going through the experience.
But how is the museum evolving? Because as you said, when it opened, the future was different maybe from what it is today. It's evolving all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So the museum right now is in a phase where we're actually looking at the next phase of the museum, whereas we want to make sure that the content is always future relevant. So what happens is with every cycle, which is usually, I would say, around 5 years roughly, where we would come in and ensure that there is a continuum and a constant change within the museum. So we always remain to be future relevant. Some of the experiences change much faster. As you can see, I mean, without kind of, we want more people to come in, so I don't want to ruin the story for many. I want them to actually experience it. So I don't want to reveal everything through this interview, but some parts of it talk about the nearer future, and some talk about the further future that could happen in 20 or 30 or 40 years. So the ones that are more related to the nearer future are the ones where the content changes more often. The ones that are more further are safer in the sense that they still are future relevant. So it's a balance between both, but eventually we'd obviously have to change the whole experience and constantly present new ideas.
Very challenging.
Absolutely. Logistically, financially, and everything.
So how are you measuring the success of both the Museum of the Future and then of the Dubai Future Foundation?
Okay, so the museum, obviously, other than the tickets and the sales, which is the typical one, which thankfully we cannot complain about, is doing amazingly well, selling out on a daily basis. So that's good from that regard. But the other side is we measure the programs. We look at how many conversations, how many events happen, and then how did those events really come up to contribute to our findings in the Future Foundation. In the Future Foundation, we always look at something, and internally we call it the ROD, which is the return on Dubai. And that is really something that we quantify how a project creates impact. That metric changes from one project to the other. We look at if we disseminate courses in the Dubai Future Academy, we see how many individuals have we prepped for the future. And this could be our return on Dubai when it comes to the Dubai Future Academy. Some other incidents like the Dubai Future District Fund, that's more, yes, it has its IRRs and multiples, but the impact side of that fund is how much have we really catalyzed the innovation ecosystem? How much have we helped create hope, introduce new sectors, introduce new businesses to the region? So not only financial side, but also on the sector opening, on the growth side of things. So each and every project has a different metric, and surely not financial. It's more on the impact side of things.
ROD, Return on Dubai.
ROD, that's something internal that now has become external.
So if you take your crystal ball out and you have to predict what Dubai and the UAE will look like in 50 years, let's say.
Oof, 50 years. Remember that thing I said about the further you go, the more gray it becomes? This is relatively gray, but I would say you would definitely see, I mean, I have to be frank, I mean, the fear of many people, you'll definitely see more robots, you'll definitely see more drones, you'll definitely see more autonomous mobility 50 years from now. That is for sure. You'll see a lot of automation happening. But what people need to understand, and this is my message always to, whether it's a panel or a presentation or a show on Emirates, I mean, for me, the message is always that humanity, history has proven that humanity will always adapt and prevail. The only thing now is that this change is just much bigger and faster, and that's why people are maybe a bit concerned, and the notion of AI and robots and kind of maybe instills this fear in them. But I think if you think about it, humanity, whether, let's look at an aircraft, for example, if you look at an aircraft and you speak to someone 100 years before the invention of an aircraft, and you tell them, listen, you'll be 30,000 feet above ground, they'll probably think you're crazy.
I still think it's crazy.
It's every time we're on Emirates, we feel like it's an unbelievable experience, especially with the luxury we get. But at the same time, I mean, thinking about it, that's one thing that we're so comfortable doing at the moment, right? You look at, I mean, elevators, when they were first invented, there was a person sitting just to give people comfort, right? And those are small things. I mean, how comfortable are we with all those devices and just adapting to different technologies? So I think even with robots and even with drones, this will be a natural adaptation process that people will adapt with. And more interesting stuff will happen. Look at the way we're adapting with ChatGPT at the moment and generative AI. People are very comfortable with it, having conversations like it's something that existed for many years. And this is only the beginning, because we haven't even connected Gen AI to robots and to quantum computing, which I think those three factors, if connected together, will create a very smart robot that can interact with us in such an interesting way.
And the key will be the human knowing how to best utilize
Absolutely.
the technology and the
Absolutely.
robot.
Which I think will always prevail.
Khalfan Belhoul, thanks so much for your time today.
A pleasure and good to be with you always. Thank you.
Thanks.